Hi, I'm Todd Heady.
And I'm Cynthia Heady.
And today we're going to do a race review from the Wilderman Off-Road Triathlon in North Dakota.
I really wanted to make it so that I got to ask Todd some questions today. So first off, Todd, give us a little bit of background about this race.
First off, she wants to set it up as an interview format because she knows if I do it on my own, I'll just ramble and never be on subject. So, just kind of a quick overview of the race.
Yeah. Like the length, the distance, where it is.
That's a little more in-depth than my description of, oh shit.
Okay.
Actually, it's a full and a half is what they bill it as, an off-road triathlon. So the full, which is what I signed up for, is roughly 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile mountain bike, and then a 26.2 mile run.
And where is the race?
The Pembury Gorge in North Dakota, which is a beautiful area. I think it's the only part of North Dakota that I saw that wasn't flat, and it wasn't even close to flat.
Huh. Well, tell us a little bit about your background leading up to this race. How long did you train prior to going to the race?
Back at the beginning of the year, I decided that I would start running again after about a decade or so taking off. So I started running. Everything was going real well with the running, so I started looking for a race to do. I saw this on the internet and thought, this is it. This is what I've got to do. Sounds like a real challenge. So about mid-April, I decided that I would start riding bikes and swimming again. Because, of course, I can do anything on 3 months of training, right? Not necessarily, as the story will progress. But, so that's kind of the background. So I started swimming, riding mountain bikes and regular bikes back in April. So I had about 3 months of training in.
And had you ever had any previous training or anything on mountain bikes?
Not particularly. I had piddled around on cyclocross bikes from time to time, but never anything on a mountain bike.
Okay, and how did you prepare for this? Where did you go to ride?
Around here a lot. I went to Mammoth Cave. It was probably my favorite place to ride. The trail's down there. Frankfort, Capitol View Park, and then a few of the parks in Louisville area, Waverly, Cherokee, those kind of things.
Now there are different types of terrain that you ride mountain bikes on. There's gravel and there is road. Had you done your homework to know what kind of terrain would be out in North Dakota?
I thought so, but I was completely and totally wrong.
Okay.
The gravel, of course I knew there was going to be a lot of gravel involved, and that was probably my biggest problem with it. Was over the 3 months that I trained, even though I built up my skills quite a bit, I hadn't developed the confidence that I should have had going into it. So I was a little more tentative going down some of the turns on the steep downhill gravel sections and those kind of things.
Do you think it would have helped you maybe to have ridden your mountain bike with other people during that time?
You know, I don't know. I did some of the short track racing they did in Louisville this summer. So I think that helped a lot, but I don't know. I've never ridden mountain bikes with a group, just like you do a group road ride. So I can't really judge, how long or how much that would have helped.
And how about swimming? Did it just come back naturally to you, or?
The first time I got in the pool, it felt good. It felt really smooth. I thought I was progressing pretty well on it. In the race, I found out that either I really screwed up something badly that day, or the training just wasn't up to what it should have been.
Okay. And what about the running? Throughout the whole thing, did your running remain and feel pretty good?
Oh yeah. From the training, from the time I started running, it's always great to either the first time you start doing something or after a long layoff and you start back, you can see that quick progression you're making when you're getting back into shape. So the running was great. The race itself was a whole lot more walking than it was running because of the terrain and that kind of thing.
And now, so leading up to the race, how did you prepare yourself for this race?
In the running, I just did what I've always done. I put in the miles. I did some semblance of workouts. Middle of just a lot of running to get in, basic shape again. So I was running with a lot of groups and that kind of stuff, and just really enjoying it.
And the biking, you spent mostly by yourself biking, or?
Yeah, on the biking, I thought my biggest problem was going to be skills. So I spent more time on the mountain bike just trying to get comfortable and learning how to mountain bike. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. As I said, that'll be a whole video on its own, you know, my idiocy trying to ride a mountain bike.
So start us at the preparing up to the time of the race, and then tell us about the race. Just break it down. What did you do before the race, and then start with the swim, and let's break it down. You tell us play by play of the race.
Well, getting ready for the race was basically, if you've ever done any real long thing where they have aid stations and drop bags and that kind of thing, a lot of it's getting that stuff together, making sure you've got all your equipment, all your supplies in the proper bags, in the proper places, making sure your bike's ready to go, all your clothing's laid out. So that was, you know, took up most of the time. And of course, before the race, you're meeting all the new people. It started at the Mount Carmel recreation area at a lake there, and so I was camped there along with several other racers. So it was a lot of good opportunity just to kind of meet people and socialize and talk about past experiences and the upcoming race. So it was really good in that way.
What were the ages of the people that were doing this race?
I think the youngest person that I saw was 28, and then there was actually one competitor. Yeah, it's easy for you to say. Competitor that was in his 60s.
And what about male to female?
There were mostly male, but there was a few females in it.
Okay, and how about how many were doing the full as opposed to the half?
I think that there were around 30 signed up total. 15 had originally signed up for the full, of which 12 of us started the full, and the rest were in the half.
Okay, so go on. So race morning, what happens?
Race morning, I had to get up and of course drive the camper to the finish line.
So this is a point-to-point race?
Yes, it's point-to-point. Catch a ride back to the start. And it was quite cool that morning. So at 7 o'clock, we start swimming.
Wetsuit legal?
Yes, it was wetsuit legal.
Okay.
I don't know if there was any legal or not. We just wore wetsuits, but it was definitely under 78 degrees. There was only one buoy that was supposedly 0.6 miles down the lake, but some people that had the GPSs on while they were swimming said that it was quite a bit longer than that. So take off on a swim. One of my biggest mistakes, equipment-wise, was that I had left my tinted goggles at home, so it was a lot of trouble seeing and that kind of thing. But for my swim, basically, I have no idea what the hell happened. It was much longer than I expected. Some of it could be accounted for in the distance, but it still shouldn't have taken me as long as it did.
Did you feel okay?
Yeah, I felt great. Never had any problems. Water was kind of choppy and everything, so I mean, it was a tough swim.
Yeah.
But it felt harder than it should have been.
Right.
But I never got any difficulty out there or anything. My biggest problem with the swim was how cold I was when I got out of the swim.
Wow.
So we get on our bikes. The first few miles on the bikes are on gravel road, and it was a miserable experience.
Yeah, let's back up here a minute. When you got on your bike and you took your wetsuit off, did you have a towel or anything with you, or you changed clothes, or did you have a tri-suit underneath your wetsuit, and that's just what you wore on the bike?
No, I had tri-shorts on in the swim, but I didn't wear my shirt or anything because I knew it was going to be. I didn't want it to be wet and cold, so dry it off as best I could. Put the bike jersey on. Of course, you have to carry so much water with you and everything. So there was the vest with the water bladder and stuff in the back.
Okay. And then you started on the bike.
Yeah. So the start of the bike is on the gravel road, and it's relatively flat for the first few miles. But I was freezing. I mean, I couldn't even take a drink of water because I had clenched my teeth so tightly for being cold that my jaws were getting sore. But that passed in a few miles, and everything got a lot better. And
it was all gravel? Did you say
the first few miles were gravel.
Okay.
And then we get to the gorge area, and you immediately drop down into the gorge, and it's a huge, rough gravel road, not a gravel road mainstream road, but more of a farm type road on somebody's property. And so you're flying down this gravel road, and there's washouts. You've got to dodge around, so you've got to make sure you pick up your line and everything really well. That's where, you know, I was more hesitant than I should have been going down these areas. And then once you get to the bottom of this first huge decline, then there's the river crossing of the can't even speak, Primbria River, which of course you have to grab your bike, kind of hold it up over your head, and wade through the river.
Is your bike heavy?
No, I mean, compared to most mountain bikes, it's relatively light. It is a full suspension bike, but it's a carbon frame and everything, so it's you know, relatively lightweight. I did fall down crossing the river, which luckily there was somebody with a camera, and there was a drone overhead taking video of all this, so I'm sure that will come up at some point. The worst part about the fall was I had promised people that I would be doing an audio recording of things during the race, and of course my recorder was in my jersey pocket, so it didn't last any longer than that.
Oh no. Oh my. So then what happens? You come out the other side, like what mile is this?
Not sure what mile was. Everything gets kind of blurry at some point during that. But it was roughly probably 10 miles or so into it. I'm not.
And mentally, how are you feeling after feeling like you had a bad swim and then getting on to here and you've already fallen in the water? What was your mental state at this point?
Oh, it was fun. I mean, you know, I was loving every minute of it. When I was, you know, trying to get warm, that kind of sucked. But as far as the rest of it, I mean, it was all fun. You know, it was not, oh my God, or anything like that. Now, as soon as I crossed the river, that's when I ran into the first breakdown. Not mine, someone else's, of course. Somebody had trashed their derailleur on their bike, so I stopped for a few minutes and see what I could do to help that guy out. But then it was back up another hill that was probably roughly a 2-mile climb on the bikes.
On a mountain bike?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to the top. Did you have to push it, get off and walk?
I don't believe I did there, but there were some climbs, you know, that were hike-a-bike kind of things.
Yeah. Wow. So that sounds pretty interesting. So what happened then as you progressed on the bike?
It's progressed on the bike. Way varied terrain. Some of it was trail. Nothing was what you would call real technical. You know, the gravel roads with the washouts were probably the most technical aspect. The toughest thing was you'd be on a gravel road, you'd be on a trail, and you'd be on a serious climb, and you'd get close to the top, and you'd see some smooth, flat gravel, and you're thinking, all right, this is great. And you'd get to that area, and that's where that 20-mile-an-hour wind was blowing right in your face.
Oh wow!
So you know that was the weather was in the 80s, so it was, you know, really hot for that type of race, but there was no rain. It wasn't muddy. You can't use any of that as an excuse. But the wind was just brutal.
So let's talk about your nutrition at this point in time. What did you have to eat prior to racing, and what were you carrying with you and having during your race? Food-wise.
You know me better than for me to tell people what I eat. This is terrible.
But it's all a part of racing.
Yeah, okay. So that morning prior to the race, of course, I had Pop-Tarts and Coke, which, you know, is my idea of a good nutritious breakfast.
You never, at any point in time, thought maybe a little protein might be some good, or anyway?
They were high protein Pop-Tarts.
Oh,
they were that new flavor.
Okay.
You know, the frosted strawberry protein Pop-Tart. And during the race, I carried Kind bars, which
are good.
Yeah, I love them. They did create one issue later on that I'll mention in a minute. But then I carried a few different types of granola, and my drink of choice for this was, of course, Sword, which first time I'd ever used that in a long race, and it did really well, except for the first time I went to take a drink of it, and I realized that I put Sword in my water bottle, and I forgot to mix the water in there with it. So, yeah, that was kind of an issue to the first aid station where I could add water.
That's funny. So you carried on your bike the sword and the water bottle, and then you had your pack on the back full of water. Is
Correct.
that how you did it?
Correct.
And was it 1.5 liters of water? Or how
Yes.
much water did you carry? Okay. And then you were to carry your own food. Did they have aid stations at this race?
Yeah, there was 4 aid stations on the bike,
Okay.
and very minimally stocked. There was no food there or anything. There was, I think they had bananas and oranges as far as snacks if you wanted them. But they had water, and God bless them, they had Coke.
Oh my
That
gosh,
was a-
what a dream.
that was
They
a-
knew somebody needed some caffeine along the way.
And that was me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure everybody probably needed caffeine at that point in time. Okay, so did you at any time feel as though you were hungry, or that maybe you needed something other than a Kind bar, like maybe a sandwich or real food?
Well, no, the biggest issue I had was on the Kind bars after a while, and I also had a Payday candy bar, and the same effect. So it wasn't the Kind bars, but the peanuts
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff got kind of hard to swallow.
Oh.
If that makes sense. So yeah, so maybe something a little smoother
Mm-hmm.
at some point would have been nice.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe some soup.
Well, no, something you could actually carry. It's hard
Yeah,
to carry
you can't
soup.
carry soup. But they could have had it maybe at the aid station. Now, where was your drop bag?
Well, actually, the drop bag on the bike was at the halfway point,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't really a drop bag for me. It was the
Yeah, but the halfway point is actually mile 65.
no, the halfway point was mile 62,
Okay.
and then to kind of cut to the chase was I was so slow on the first loop on the half that there was no way unless I could increase my pace, which wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be forced to into the half run anyway. So what the decision was made that just go ahead, do half the bike,
Mm-hmm.
and then do the half run in the light where I could still enjoy it. And so the half course was 62 miles to the aid station, and then to T2 was another 3 miles. So,
Was it hard for you to make that choice?
yeah, it is. And then you do the math and you go, there's no way I'm going to make it by 10:30 tonight anyway, so I'm going to be forced to do the half run. So we might as well do it in the light where we can enjoy it. And once I got onto the run course, I was really happy with my decision.
But as it turned out, almost everybody in the race had to do the half, correct? There
Oh,
were
yeah.
15 that supposedly signed up, 12 that started, and only 4 that went on and did the full. Everybody else either did the half or quit,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So this race, for whatever reason, it seems like last year when I looked at the statistics, there were more. Now, I don't know if the statistics I looked at included the half and the full, but like most of out of 13, 12 of them finished, but I think that was both races. So,
Well, what had happened last year was the course was cut 7.5 miles short on both loops.
oh,
and
so
it was-
people got there
And it
quicker.
was the toughest part of the bike that
Oh.
got cut off. So for the full people, it was 15 of the toughest miles were taken out of it.
So it was easier to complete or
Right,
get
so it
there
was
on
much
time.
easier to
Okay,
complete.
so they didn't change the time frame
Right.
when they did that. I wonder why. You know, Leadville did that one year, changed the course but kept their cutoffs the same.
Right.
And anyway, then it just makes it harder for the people that are doing it like this year to make the cutoff. I understand. Okay, so anyway, back to once you made that decision, everybody then went on to the run, right? So tell us what happened on the run.
Well, the run, I knew kind of what the run was going to be as far as reading the description of it. It was going to be some trail running, but 6 miles of it were going to be creek bottom. Well, in the half, it was going to be about 4.5 miles of creek bottom running. So you get this image in your head of what it's going to be like running through a creek. And I played around and splashed through some creeks, at home and stuff in training. And you get there, I can't even describe what it was like. I'm going to try. I took some on the run. I decided, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this from now on. So I took some pictures during the run. I stopped at the aid stations and shot the shit with the volunteers and that kind of stuff, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. But I can't imagine doing a lot of this at night. I'm going to try to post some of those pictures in here. The first part of the creek you got into, you couldn't see the creek. It was like running through just a brush pile with a creek at the bottom of it that you can't even see. I know you asked about bringing poles or something.
Yeah.
And it was so thick you wouldn't have been able to carry poles in it.
So how did he mark it? How was the course marked? Like you knew where to go, or did he just tell you you go through the creek, so when you come out the other side there'll be markers?
Oh well, the points where you weren't in the creek were marked wonderful. I mean, you couldn't complain about the way it was marked.
Did he use streamers the way that we use streamers?
Yeah, the run course was marked with streamers.
Okay.
The bike course, he had little signs on the road, and yeah, there was no complaints about the marking at all. The only bad part was, in the creek, you followed the creek, so there was no need to mark it. As long as you were in the creek, you were on course. And that 4.5 miles in a creek with no markings, and you're out there for 2.5, 3 hours in this area, because you can't run. You're chopping through brush, there. So it just seems like you're in there so long, and you're not seeing that marker to get out of the creek. It's kind of worrisome, but as long as you're in that creek, you're still on course.
So you're doubting yourself the whole time. If you turn around and go back, then you just have to go back through it.
Oh yeah. Now I did download a GPX map onto my Garmin watch, so that kind of let me know a little bit about where I was and if I was still on course or not. So, and I want to do a video on that at some point, just using that, because I'd used it on both my bike and on the run, and it was a huge help.
Really? So he downloaded it and then you picked it up? Is that how that works?
Right. I downloaded from the website. It's a GPX file. And then I put it into my watch and then to my Garmin on my bike also. And so as I'm riding along and running along, I've got a map of the course. And
is that something you might ever be able to do for some of our courses?
It's possible. Is it possible for me and my low-tech self to do? I'm not committing to it, but yeah, it is possible.
Oh, might be a good idea to try something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was at what mile of the run, the creek?
Well, now, on the half, if you're just doing the half, it started roughly 5 or 6 miles into it. And the run for the half wasn't 13.1, it was closer to 18 miles.
Yeah, yeah. So really you did a little over 2.4 mile swim.
Closer to 3 on the swim.
3 mile swim, a 65 mile bike.
Correct.
And then 17, 18 mile run.
Between 17 and 18.
18 miles run, okay. So it's quite a bit more than a half. Really, yeah. And so how did you feel when you were done? Oh, so okay, so after the creek bottom, were there any places where you could actually run?
Now before the creek, you're on gravel for a few minutes, so you could run, the first part. After the creeks, there were some fields you were running through, and the pass through them, they were more fields, trails to a field, and so there was a lot of high grass and that kind of stuff. So you could run, but getting your feet up over that stuff, if you ever ran in high grass, it was a tough run, even running on the flat sections.
Yeah. So is there any way you could have prepared yourself for that here?
Oh, knowing what you're getting into, I mean, for the trails, running more cross-country type running in the grass and stuff would have got you more mentally prepared for that action.
Right.
Because there wasn't a whole lot of
maybe
single
you'd gone
track.
to a farm and ran between the cornfields, is that right?
Yeah, but as far as the creek, I can't imagine anywhere around here you could, really prepare. Because when around here we think of a creek, we think of a 6 to 20 foot wide creek.
Right.
Well, this creek was in a lot of places 18 inches 2 foot wide that you couldn't see because of all the brush over it.
Right.
And the other sections, now that's just was part of the creek. A lot of the rest of the creek were boulders you were climbing over and that kind of stuff.
So you feel like now that you have seen this course, if you were to ever go back, you would know how to prepare for it?
I know better how to prepare for it.
Yeah.
Like I said, more time to prepare for the, training on the bike and stuff would help more than anything.
Yeah, riding a bike longer than 3 months maybe for a mountain bike might help. Which I don't even know if you did it for 3 months. But say you had 3 months training to learn to ride a mountain bike, it might have helped to have had a little bit more. But I think you did really well. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, I have no complaints. I enjoyed every minute of it. I got to meet a lot of cool new people. Like to shout out to End Racing, Extreme North Dakota Racing, who put on the race. They did a great job with it. All the volunteers, excuse me, were incredible. I mean, if you've ever volunteered for a race, you know what it's like to be out there. But with this few people, I mean, for the full, only
28 hours.
Only one person finished under 24 hours. And so these volunteers sat there and took care of these people all night long.
Wow.
You know, with very few people coming by and everything.
So after the 24 mark, there were 3 people, and those volunteers stayed out for 3 people all night.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Like I said, you got to love them for it.
Okay, so let's talk about this End Racing. This gentleman that puts this on, are all of his races like this? They're almost like obstacle courses.
Are you saying batshit crazy?
Yes.
Yeah, they're pretty much, from what I get, you know, they do a marathon swim that I believe it's 36 miles. It's called End Wet.
And I'm very curious about this. You told me about this, and I have thought about it. Who could swim 36 miles? You'd have to bring your own kayak and food to go next to you.
Now, I believe, don't take my word for it, check their website, that it's mostly downriver. But yeah, it's they call it a marathon swim, so maybe I misheard and it's 26 miles, but
yeah,
it's a long ass swim.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Todd, now that you have jumped back into the racing scene after a 11 or 12 year hiatus, what is your plans for the future?
I have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to mess with next. We'll find something. You know, it's great. I totally enjoyed it all, and I think this kind of event was, I think, the spirit of the things a lot of people are looking for. I mean, it was an extreme challenge. It didn't work out quite the way I wanted it to, but it was fun. I was able to push myself to the limits of what I could do to see how far I could go. And I think that's what a lot of it is. You know, our company, for example, head first. You know, a lot of times that's what you've got to do. You just got to dive in head first to a challenge and see where it ends up.
And it was fun doing something different, wasn't it? Learning to ride a mountain bike as opposed to riding a road bike.
I always think falling down is a whole lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you came home in one piece, so I think you did all right. And
I'd like to announce for all of you that were worried about it, the RV did make it.
Oh my gosh, no problems. The RV. Yes. The beloved RV. It looks exactly like it did. Well, except a little beat up many years ago. It has not been updated at all, poor thing. But it still runs. You know,
and that's something I'd like to do some more information on too. You know, is how to go out and do something like this and kind of do it on the cheap. I spent very little money, except for those damn tolls going through Chicago.
Yeah.
Wow. I did avoid those coming back though. I drove an hour and a half just to get out of paying tolls.
Just to avoid paying a toll. Oh, that's so funny. Well, you don't want to go across the bridge in Louisville either, because that's a good $4. But anyway, well, we thank you all for listening today and for our podcast. We have enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll join us again soon as we dive into the next adventure that Todd may be taking. So.
Well, it's not just me. Cynthia, we're going to do some either videos or podcasts once we get our podcasting thing set up on her adventure. She's going to do UTMB, which is Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. Is that the correct name? So she's going to go here in about a month and a half and run through the Alps in France, Italy, and Switzerland, which should be an extreme adventure.
I'm kind of scared about that, so I'll let you all know how that goes.
But you know, for you guys, if you're looking at it and saying, okay, these people are stupid, which they're right, you know, and they're not looking for this kind of adventure, you know, never feel bad about just picking something out that's a challenge for yourself and doing. I mean, it might be your first 5K, it might be your first sprint triathlon, your first trail run, stepping up to an iron distance race. You know, never be afraid to do something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went out, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, but I had a ball doing it.
You know, you think about it in life, the only thing that can happen is that you fail. I mean, and we don't die from it. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, most of the time. You only die from things once.
yeah, well, I guess that's true. You don't come back. But, you know, I guess you can't be afraid of things not working out the way you want. If that be the case, you would never do anything. So you just have to start it and do it and see what happens. And, you know, you can adjust from there. So.
And I encourage everybody to go to headfirstperformance.com and check out the races we've got, the races we're putting on, the triathlons, trail runs, 5Ks if that's your thing. And maybe that's your next adventure that you want to dive into head first.
That's right. Well, we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.